Hello, everybody, and welcome to the. Sorry about that. I said hello, everybody, and welcome to the Wellspring panel discussion on international education in the United States, and with a specific focus on the recent changes or the pause right now in Washington. We're going to try to elaborate on that a little bit and just give you a sense. Our goal here today is to help all of our agents and in turn our students understand just how important international education is to the to all of our institutions and how welcoming our institutions are of international students. And so what I'm going to do is babble on for just another minute while people sort of funnel in. I see people continuing to arrive inside of the session. And then we'll take a second and I will introduce our panel and we'll get going from there. Okay. And I think I'm looking at the wrong list. So, oh, yeah, no, that's right. Okay. So with that introduction, we have three of our university partners here on the panel with us today. We have in my upper left Abby Swanson from Saginaw Valley State University of Michigan, and below her on my screen anyway is Nate Duggins right here in Colorado at Colorado State University. And then in Miami, Kendra Zacharow with St. Thomas University. And they're here, as I said a minute ago, just to help us understand how things are in each of their campuses and their perspective on international education and the goals of their institutions and the ways that they can reach out and help your students. So before I go any further, I'm just going to ask each of them to just say a minute and introduce them, or take a minute and introduce themselves. So I'll start with Abby.
Thanks, Greg. My name is Abby, and I'm the International Admission Counselor at Saginaw Valley State University in Michigan. We are located right on Lake Huron, just about 15 minutes from the lake, and about an hour and a half from Detroit, Michigan. We're a mid-sized public university. We have just shy of 8,000 students, and of that number, 170 are international from 45 countries. So very excited to be here today and for you to learn more about kind of the climate and how we're adjusting as universities.
Very good. Thanks, Abby. And Nate Duggins at Colorado State University.
Yeah, thanks, Greg, and thanks for everyone being here. Like Greg said, Nate Duggins, Assistant Director, International Recruitment at Colorado State, located in Fort Collins, Colorado, which is 1 hour straight north of our capital city of Denver. Larger public institution, 30,000 total students. We have just over 2,000 international students. And so I think I'll leave it at that so we can move forward.
Sounds good. Thanks, Nate. And Kendra.
Hello, I am Kendra Zackrell. I'm representing St. Thomas University here in Miami, Florida. We have a great presence with students from over 80 countries and around 500 F1 international students. So things are always looking up here. It's nice and warm. So I'm excited to tell you more about us today and how we're approaching the current situation.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you all and welcome to all the agents. We appreciate you taking a little bit of time out of your day. As I said, our hope is to help you understand what the state of international education is in the United States and on these campuses in particular. I want to take a minute to talk about what we're not going to do today, right? We are not going to try to make predictions about what the federal government here in the United States might do or will do next. But that's beyond my pay grade, and I think it's beyond Nate's and Kendra's and Abby's as well. So we'll leave the government to do what the government does. I will say though, all the feedback that we have on the current visa appointment pause is that it is in fact a pause. And we've gotten that feedback from multiple agencies around the world over the last week or two. We have that feedback directly from employees of the State Department who happen to be at NAFSA in the first week of this pause. So we've heard nothing to suggest anything other than this is a pause, that the new administration would like to have some changes in the processes they use when they are reviewing students and conducting interviews. And then when they're done instituting those and training their staff, they will reopen those visa windows. So when that might be, we're not exactly sure. But what we want to do is just sort of help you understand today, again, just how important international education and how valued you and your students are. And we will, in the middle of this, talk a little bit about some recommendations we have about what you might do with your students during the pause and while we're waiting. But with that introduction, I'm just going to go ahead and get started, and I'm just going to throw out the first question, and I'll go around the horn and let each of our panelists answer the question. And it's a very simple question. It's, what's the atmosphere on your campus for international students today? And Abby, since you're the upper left, we'll start with you on that one today.
Sounds good. So Saginaw Valley is it had a long has long been committed to welcoming international students on campus and ensuring that they feel supported both professionally, academically, and socially when they get to campus. We have a student driver who will pick up the student directly from the airport and bring them to campus for orientation. The student will then spend 2 days in orientation, getting to know the surrounding communities and campus. And they'll be registering for their classes as well during that time. We have a range of faculty from different areas of the world, and so our faculty are understanding of the students. We have a low student to faculty ratio on campus, which really allows the student to develop meaningful, long-lasting relationships with the faculty members, which will serve them well throughout their careers. Apart from campus, we have 36 Fortune 500 companies in Michigan located within 90 minutes of campus. So that brings in a lot of international folks who then go in and open up businesses, such as restaurants. So we have lots of restaurants and different interesting shops around campus for international students.
Very good. Thanks, Abby. And Nate, to you on that question.
Yeah, I mean, with the current students, at the risk of sounding overly simplistic, it's kind of a no news is good news approach. Like, we obviously have been reaching out. Our immigration team, I think last week, sent an email saying, "Hey, we know what the government's doing. We're here to support you. Reach out if you need anything." That was met with overwhelming support and positivity, kind of a "hey, thanks for thinking of us" sort of thing. We've also sent something similar to our incoming cohort. So we're still getting the same emails that I'm sure, Abby and Kendra are getting, or "hey, how do I register for housing or orientation," and stuff like that, which is great. So, what's been really encouraging, I guess, with Fort Collins and the community has been the response from our community. So kind of outside campus, reaching out, how can we help? Do we need to house some students before they can get on campus? We sponsored a 5K run about 6 weeks ago. That was met with overwhelming support. So, kind of internally, we're answering the same questions and going through the same steps as we always have. But externally within the community, there has been a very kind of noticeable change in how can we get involved and how can we support. So that's been incredibly kind of humbling to see that from a community that historically has always been supportive of international students, but now even more so. So that's been very nice as well.
Very good. So what I'm hearing, Nate, is that on campus, it's business as usual. Your students are comfortable, they're thriving, they're welcomed by your faculty and by the campus itself. And outside of campus, in the larger community, it's a community that values those students as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, Kendra, how about down in St. Thomas?
Yeah, everything on campus is like Nate says, business as usual here. We luckily have not been affected by any sort of visa terminations. We get that question a lot from our incoming students. Have any of your students, because they're just looking for trends, they're concerned, and we can happily say that we have not been affected by any of those. So we're preparing for our international onboarding and move-in in mid-August. So we're really excited for that. We are churning out I-20s. We issued, I believe, 10 I-20s yesterday. Our dedicated international admissions advisor, George, has been, answering all those normal questions like housing, orientation, meal plans, roommates, things like that. So we're still seeing a lot of excitement among our applicants. There's a little nervousness, of course, but we're obviously supporting them in every which way. George is also developing a new training for visa appointments so that we can also provide that support on the admissions side of, what should you bring? What should you do for your visa appointment? And just making sure our applicants for this year especially feel really comfortable and prepared going into their visa appointment.
Sounds good. And so, just a little bit on Miami, big international city, people from all over the world, whether they're students or not, right? We're talking about a big international hub in the United States. So help me understand a little bit of how your international students feel in and amongst the community in Miami.
Yes, I know we're talking to a lot of Latin American agents and students today. So most of our international students do happen to be from Latin America, and they find, Miami is little Latin America. We have lots of Hispanic students and culture already. We have shops, we have art, we have food, we have music, we have entertainment. We have all sorts of things that attract people as a global capital culture. And, on top of that, you get a great education at St. Thomas. So we just have been seeing a lot of interest, and there's no snow. So a lot of our Latin American students, when they want to come study in the United States, they definitely don't want to go somewhere with snow. So we're lucky enough to have a lot of Latin Americans there. And we of course, have students from, 80 plus countries, but I think, especially Miami is a special place for a lot of Latin Americans.
And so this is what we're hearing, not just from the three panelists here, but really the feedback from all of the Wellspring portfolio of schools, right? The campuses continue to be welcoming, the faculty, the other students, the communities that are on campus and the day-to-day lives of students continue to want international students, continue to look to recruit international students to be welcome of them, and the communities that surround them are just as welcoming. And I know because I live here in Colorado that Fort Collins is a town that people choose to move to because it's a relatively small town with a great big university, and people like that vibrant community that's created when not only do we have students from all over the United States on campus, 30,000 students from all over, but I think Nate, you said 2,000 international students
Yeah, yeah, a
on your
little,
campus, right?
little north of
Yeah.
that. Yep.
And so, these communities enjoy the kind of vibrant character that 30,000, or in the case of these other schools, 2, 3, 4,000 students brings to a community, and they continue to be welcoming. I think I know the answer to the next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Does the current visa appointment pause change the university's interest in or support for international students in any way? And I'll go to you first this time, Nate.
No, it doesn't. I mean, if anything, it's increased or strengthened our resolve for going out and getting international students. I think it's easy when times are easy, right? Like when times get tougher, that's when kind of your international team, your community, your immigration services really needs to show up for these students. And I mean, we have my colleagues here. I obviously don't work for your institutions, but I'm just going to say you have as well, because that's the business we're in. We are in the business of getting students from overseas to come to our institutions seamlessly and have a great experience. And so that has not changed, and if anything has gotten, I mean, almost a little bit stronger given recent announcements.
Yeah. And Kendra, how about at St. Thomas?
Yeah, I'd say the same thing as Nate. Thank you for speaking for me. That we're just getting more supportive. Like I mentioned, we've never provided visa appointment advice or guidance in the past, and that's an additional service that we want our students to feel as supportive and as comfortable as possible going into their visa appointment. So, if anything, we're adding more services and spending more time on each international student to make sure that they feel welcome here and that they know they are wanted here, and that life on campus has not changed. It's still just as fun and sunny as ever. So
Very good. I'm on my way. I'll be on the next plane. And Abby, how about it at Saginaw Valley?
Yeah, so similar to the other two, we have actually strengthened our desire for international students, and our administration has been backing our division. He he okayed the increase of scholarships for international students this year, so we've made it a lot more accessible. In addition to lowering some of the requirements to accommodate the needs of international students.
Okay. So the response is overwhelming, and we're seeing it everywhere. And I think you all said it very well. At the end of the day, it's about showing up for students and providing as much support as we can. But they are welcome, they're valued, and each of our schools is got a sharp focus on making sure that we do everything in our power to help make sure that students are holding an admission have an opportunity to come and study here in the United States. Next question. Once the visa appointments open back up, how does the university plan to help students who get late arrivals potentially? You know, this thing has kind of come up. Any administration, by the way, in the United States has the right, and often do, stop whole processes of government if they want to pause, evaluate how it's working, and make improvements or changes. Every administration has the perfect right to do that, right? So whatever our political beliefs are, any president of the United States who wants to change a process for international education or the way that Social Security works or any other government program, they don't have the right to stop a program, but they have a right to look at it and say, because their job, the president of the United States job is, let's make sure that we're executing, it's the executive branch, right? That we're running the government the very best way we can. So he's got the perfect right to change any process he wants and take the time he needs to do that. The timing's very unfortunate though, right? We can't deny the fact. We've been much better to pause in October and get things together for next year, but this is what they decided to do. Given the timing, it means we probably are going to be in a situation where when these appointments start to open back up, we're going to have students showing up for visas, and they might have their visa approvals and their plane tickets booked a little later than usual. And so what happens if we've got students who need to arrive a little bit late? What are the options that we have available to them? What can the universities be doing to support them? And Kendra, I haven't started with you first yet, so I'll start with you.
Sure, of course. So we're really flexible on, we don't have a hard cutoff for I-20s or deadlines or visa appointments or anything like that. We continue taking students until, at drop of the semester they start. So we are blessed to have some great processes and some great people that allow us to do that and just make sure everything's ready for everyone. So like I said, we will issue up I-20s until the bitter end. So we are, we're not going to say, okay, now it's past June 15th, you have to defer. But we also have added some specific international move-ins later in August so that they can move in with other international students, and our international admissions counselor George will be there to do their initial, onboarding and CVIS registration as well. So we are prepared for late arrivals, like I mentioned, or late I-20s. We traditionally do get most of our documents in early June, but we are willing to work around the situation right now where we will issue them as long as we can, and we will make arrangements for students as much as we can, especially in regard to housing. And we will do whatever we can to make it easier on our end so it's easier on their end.
Very good, very good. And Abby, how about at Saginaw?
Similar to Kendra, we will accept late arrivals up until our drop add date, which is August 29th. It's the first Friday of the semester. So this will give students about 5 days of a grace period. Unfortunately, we can't offer an extended deadline because it's really not within the student's best interest to jump into a class, 3-4 weeks into it. And so our aim is to lower the stress for the student and ultimately advise them towards success. And so that's why we are having the hard cutoff at August 29th. But for students who are either awaiting their visa appointment or did not get a visa yet, we are offering the students an online option. And so they can take their courses beginning in August online. They can defer until the spring or winter semester 26, and then come to campus full-time as a student.
So I'm gonna come back a little bit because what I heard in the middle of that is a real sharp focus on student success. at Saginaw, and I'm sure this is true for all of our institutions. And I know we'll get this question, so this is why I'm coming back to it. Students may arrive physically on campus up till the 29th, which is a week after your start and your drop add time. And after that time, they can either defer till January or they can go online and then show up in January,
That's
right?
right. Yep.
Okay. And the reason for that is if we have a student show up 2 weeks late, 3 weeks late, right? Now they're in a foreign country in a second language and they're 3 weeks behind before they even get started. So they're taking 15 credits if they're an undergraduate student, right? And they're 3 weeks behind all the students, including the American students who are studying in their first language, right? And that's just not a formula for students to be successful in the end, right? We want to make sure that all of our students, when they get to campus, they have an opportunity to be successful. That first semester is just critically important to establish themselves, get their academic habits in order, and get to the end of the semester with good grades, feeling good about what they're doing, not in a GPA hole that has them trying to dig out for the rest of their time there, right? Is that, have I pretty well captured that?
I would say so. Yeah.
Okay. And I have to say I can't agree more, right? We would all like to be able to say, come in October, come on the 15th of September. We'd like to be able to say to students, come whenever you want. But the reality is it's got to be in the best interest of the student. And Nate, I'll let you follow up on that.
Yeah, because I mean, all of us are getting into this time of year where we're having these conversations, right? Hey, can I show up? I got one this morning, October, and I was like, no, no, gently. But I was like, but let's talk about your options. Do you want to start online then come in the spring? Do you just want to get pushed back to spring? It's different, right? Kendra's conversation with the Colombians a little different than my conversation because of proximity. Miami to Denver, but we're all set up to kind of yeah, we can issue an I-20 late, but let's talk about the reality of what that looks like for you. And maybe we push you back to the spring start. So it just goes back to the core thing of it doesn't make sense to get you to campus if you're not going to be successful, right? So let's talk about what that looks like and the best steps forward.
Very good.
And one thing that we've
Small.
done that I failed to mention originally is we do not usually have freshmen traditionally starting in October, but we did move our class schedules around enough that we can accommodate a start in October now as well as in the spring. So, like Nate said, some of the situations are just going to be unavoidable where you really can't arrive until October. So, we do have like mini semesters where there's like an A and a B part of the semester, and we traditionally don't have freshmen or transfer students start in that second half of the semester, but we went ahead and we looked at our course schedule and we made sure there were enough classes for students, international students, to be able to start full time then as well.
I think I'm hearing applause all across Latin America. So that's fantastic. And that's a kind of flexibility. Not all of our schools have that. And so taking advantage of an AB term, or what you refer to, what your term for mini?
Minis, yes.
Minis, yeah. And so still a full-time student starting October, taking a half a semester course. Brilliant solution if it's on the books and available to you. Nate, I want to just sort of tease out one thing you said at the end about sort of customizing. I think it's really important for us to understand, and I'll just say in pitching it back to you, the Wellspring staff stands ready with all of our agents to be your resource for this and to introduce you to anybody on campus you need. But I think what you're saying, Nate, is that when the student gets the I-20 and they've got their visa appointment and they kind of know what their arrival can be, we just need to meet each individual one. Each of them has to have a conversation with us to figure out what's the very best way for them to start, whether that's arrive on time, arrive a few days late, take a semester online, or defer the whole thing. These are sort of one-on-one conversations that we need to have with the students to make sure that we're making the best decision we can.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's not one size, fits all. I can use CSU as an example. I mean, the undergrads we're a lot more flexible with because they can take a lot more first year courses to satisfy requirements. The grads are a little bit more narrow, right? Their program's a
Yeah.
lot more specific. We have reached out to our graduate department saying, hey, we anticipate a lot more emails from your admitted graduate students that they might arrive later. Can you be a little bit more flexible? And most have been very accommodating to that because they get it. They understand what's
Yeah.
going on.
So and I see 20 agents on the call here, and I also see Juan from our team. Juan is your resource, right? As you have individual students with individual questions about what do I do to get to Colorado State, or what do I do to get to St. Thomas or Saginaw Valley State or beyond, please let us know, right? And let Juan know, and we'll get you in touch with the right people. And whether it's these three schools or any of the other schools in our network, um, I think the answer would be the same no matter who we had on this panel from our network of schools. A little bit more on online. I just want to make sure that everybody understands the options. One thing is for Wellspring across the board, there is an online option for every student. Any student who finds themselves in a position where they aren't able to show up on campus at the time that they like has the opportunity to start online, right? We work with a school called LACC in Los Angeles. Their courses will be available to any student and are fully transferable to any university in the United States, right? Most of our schools, including I think all three of these panelists, have their own online option, right? So another customization. Each school has a slightly different approach to online, a slightly different way that a student would change their registration from on campus to online and then back again. So it's another customization, and it's another place where Juan can be very helpful to you. So when a student gets to the point that they need to be online, make sure they're talking to us, so that we can make sure that we've got them at the right place in the right program and connected to the correct advisor on their campus to get the best result they can. Right? Does anybody have anything else to say about your individual online opportunities? Okay. Fantastic. All right, then moving on one more time. Kendra, I'm going to start with you on this one because I think you already answered this question, but I want you to be able to even just highlight that one more time. The question is, once the visa appointments open back up, will the universities provide specialized guidance on visa applications, especially in light of visa review policies that may differ from previous guidance? So to the
Yeah.
extent that the government is changing the policy a little bit and changing the procedures, maybe changing the kind of questions they ask, is there anything you want to do to help students once we understand all of that?
Absolutely. And proactively, we've already seen and what the State Department is putting out that they are going to specifically be screening social media. So we are going to give our best estimations to our best advice to our applicants to, take a look at your own social media. What do you have out there that maybe, could be misinterpreted? Or do you have public social media? And just, saying, just understand that your social media will likely very well be screened during your visa appointment and to be mindful of what you're posting and also review it in advance to see if there is anything there.
Yeah. And Kendra, I think you make a great point, and I want to highlight it, right? And point out to you that if the government, the State Department already has your SEVIS record, they could proactively look at your social media ahead of the appointment, right? So, agents and those of us who are counseling students, right? Uh, I have students around the same age, kids around the same age. We had lots of conversations in our house without needing visas about how important it is to make sure that you're representing yourself in social media the way you would want an adult to interpret you, right? That kids, I think, sometimes will say things in social media that they wish other people did, that may be okay for their friends to see and hear. They might not like think an adult should see and hear that, right? The time for kids to think about what their social media presence is in the world is today, if they're 10, right? But if they're starting to apply to college, right, the time for them to start thinking about, does my social media represent me the way I want an adult to see me, is at the time that they start to do the applications, right? And if they've got the applications done already and they've already been admitted, which is what the reality is here today on June 10th of 2025, then one thing you could be doing today is counseling students to look at their social media and make sure that they think it represents them the way they'd want the colleges to see it, the way they'd like the United States government to see it, the way they'd like their mother, that's even more important, the way they'd like their mother to see it. I used to tell my kids that all the time. If there's something on your social media that you wouldn't want your mother to see, it might be time to take that down. So that's dad advice. To you, Abby, on the same question, is there anything that Saginaw Valley State can be doing for kids once we know a little bit more about these new visa processes?
We hold 2 visa prep sessions per week, and so those are being updated to fall in line with the new parameters. So yeah, we're staying up to date and informing students.
Okay, good. And Nate?
Similar to colleagues here, pre-arrival webinars, we do them all year. Obviously, that tone is going to shift a little bit once we get a little bit more guidance or clarity, if we get more guidance and clarity. But I kind of always go back to just being as authentic as you can be. I mean, those immigration officers can sniff out a scripted response better than most. I mean, they hear what, hundreds a day. So, just be yourself. Don't say what you think they want to hear. And I think that trickles down positively, right? Because you should be able to give a good response as to why Colorado State, why Saginaw Valley, why St. Thomas. And so maybe the parameters and the means by which they're doing it aren't the best, but I think it does kind of lead back to giving an answer that the students likely should have been giving in the first place. So that my advice in that area has not changed over the years.
And so I think this is a second thing that agents on the call that you can be in your capacity as counseling students is something you could be doing today, right? The value of an agency, one of the many values of an agency is the families trust you. The kids don't know the United States, the kids don't know the institution. So you're all talking to students all day, every day, trying to help them understand, which school would be best for me from the perspective of the location of the school, from the perspective of the cost of the school and my family's budget, from the perspective of what would I like to do with my life in the end and what do I want to study. From the perspective of how strongly am I prepared academically to succeed on these campuses, right? But in the end, the kid needs to understand why he's going or she's going to these individual schools, right? So the last bit of your process, and even more important now, is to make sure the students actively participated in the decision to go where they're going, actively understand why they're going there. So when they're asked, why are you going to Colorado? They can say, because of the beautiful sunshine and mountains, because it's a Research One institution, because it has the very best what's your very best program, Nate? What's if the top rated program in Colorado is?
Veterinary medicine.
Veterinary medicine, because they have the very best veterinary medicine program that I could find, right? They need their own personal reasons for why, and they need to have sort of actively made that final decision on their own. And so going back over that with them during this pause is I think valuable use of time, right? And helping them make sure that they can articulate that. Don't dictate to them what they should say, because if as Nate said, if it sounds like a script, they'll pick up on that as well. They just need to be able to identify them for themselves why they are choosing what they're choosing and why they're going where they're going. So, anything else on this topic? Okay. Then the last thing I'll say about it is Wellspring also does visa prep sessions. And so we will continue to do those visa prep sessions. We will update our visa prep sessions when we understand what these new processes are. Then we will be making our visa prep sessions reflect those changes and make sure the students are as prepared as they can be. And what that means is every one of your students has 3 options to get ready. They have your office wherever you are in Latin America, and you and your counselors to help them. They have Wellspring and our visa prep session, and they have the school that they're going to, and they all have an opportunity to log on and do a pre-arrival session that includes visa prep. And I would say to you, make sure your kids have done all 3 of those things, because they'll hear it from 3 different perspectives. They'll get 3 different opportunities to think it through. And those are all resources that are right there free and at the disposal of your kids, and let's make sure they take advantage of it. All right, I'm going to give our panelists a little bit of break. We do have some advice that we put together based on our best information that we've got. Uh, and so I'm going to share that advice with you in terms of what I think we should be doing today. The number one bit of advice that we have for all of our agents and for all of your students is get your I-20. Get your I-20 now. If the student doesn't have their I-20 yet, they should do it today, right? In order to make that as easy as possible, we have taken away the financial risk associated with that. Wellspring no longer charges any deposit for any student during this pause. So all Wellspring deposit fees are waived. Our individual campuses have done various things with their deposits, but most of the case they're either waived or they are deferred. So I'll let Nate speak to this for just a second because I believe in Colorado, those deposits are deferred. And what do you mean when you say deferred, Nate?
Yeah, so historically, a student would need to put down a deposit. Ours is $300 to move to the next stage in the process, being housing, orientation, course registration, etc. We've always allowed students to defer that deposit, excuse me, they don't have to pay that $300, but they can move to the next stage in the process, the next stages in the process. And then if they decide to attend Colorado State, we add that $300 to their first tuition bill. So for whatever reason, if they don't want to spend that money right away, but they want to move forward, they can do so. That's the undergraduate side. The graduate side, your masters and PhDs, we've never required a deposit. So they're able to move forward without that anyway. So, hopefully in these uncertain times, that's going to prove helpful for the students and the families you work with.
So Nate, if a student wants an I-20, an admitted student wants an I-20 from
Yeah.
Colorado State University, how big a check do they have to write to get that I-20?
0.00 US dollars.
A $0 check will get you an I-20. So the financial risk of an I-20 is out of the way, right? Get your I-20 because what's going to happen here is when they open up the appointments, it's going to be like the Ticketmaster queue at a Taylor Swift concert, right? Every kid who wants an appointment is going to be on there refreshing and refreshing and refreshing their screen till they fill those appointments right up, right? So if the first thing that you have to do after the appointments open up is get your I-20, you are going to be days or a week behind a student who's holding the I-20 in their hand, right? So make sure your students are holding their I-20 in their hand. It came up this morning on a different call that students might not want to commit yet to come to the United States. They might hold out their options to go other places. A student does not need to come to the United States just because they're holding an I-20. A student can request their I-20, can even get the visa, and then if they decide that they'd rather go to Oxford or Cambridge in the UK, they're more than welcome to go to Oxford or Cambridge in the USA. Holding an I-20 is not an irreversible decision for the student, but holding an I-20 does give them the golden ticket that allows them to secure a visa appointment when the visa appointments become available. So if you hear nothing else today, get that I-20 for your students, have them reach out. Let's make sure they're holding it. There's one further step that we think they should take. This one does cost a little bit of money, right? We think that once you're holding the I-20, you should go ahead and pay your SEVIS I-901 fee, and you should submit your DS-160, right? And what does that do? Now I've got my I-20, and I've been proactive. I took one more step. I got onto the SEVIS system. I paid my fees. I've registered, right? Now when the appointments come open, all I have to do is log back on, click on the calendar, and book my appointment, right? And our very best advice is that every student who has an I-20 in hand and who's paid the registration fees is going to be ahead of the queue in a strong position to get that appointment when the appointment does become available, right? A student who has the I-20 but hasn't registered for the fee has to take the time to register the fee first. And a student who doesn't even have the I-20 has to wait for that to come to them before they can even get started. So get your I-20, take a little bit of a risk on the SEVIS fee and get yourself set up so that you're secure in the system. And the only step left to do is book that appointment. Now, that financial risk in terms of paying the SEVIS fee, it's there. But remember, those fees are good for 365 days. So once the student has paid the fee, let's say it's June 10th today, they pay the fee. If an appointment comes available on the 20th of June, they can take that appointment and probably get here in time for August. If that doesn't work out and they can't get an appointment till October, they pay the fee still counts, right? So they can use that fee and they can enroll on a deferred status to come in January of 2026. And for that matter, they can actually come in September or August of 2026, right? As long as their appointment is before June 10th of 2026. If I pay my fee today, I've got 365 days after that point to make my appointment, right? So our very best advice, get the I-20, pay your fees, be positioned, preparation, success favors the prepared, right? And maybe this is a good object lesson for these kids. Put yourself in the strongest position you can be in, right? Hope, on the other hand, has always been a very bad strategy. So hoping that it works and hoping you can get an I-20 and hoping it happens in time, not as good a strategy as preparation and pay the fee. And then the last thing, we on your behalf are monitoring the State Department and all news sources all the time. And as soon as we know that visa appointments are open and available, we're going to reach out to you and let you know that. But you may find it before we do. So I would suggest that all of you in your offices should be checking on your own every day. And you probably are, my guess, right? And let your kids be doing the same thing. If you have a student who's holding I-20, who's interested in coming here, make sure they're checking every day to see. They might want to check once in the morning and once again in the evening. That just make sure that as soon as there's an opportunity, they're out there and able to apply. So get your I-20, pay the fees, and monitor that system. That's the very, very best advice that we can give. Does anybody on the panel have anything to add to that? Okay, very good. All right, then. Before we get to the last question, I just want to thank everybody who's participating here, all the participants, all the agents. If you do have questions, there is a chat. We will try to get to some questions at the end if we have time. But if you have questions that we don't get to, we will make sure that we reach out to you after these webinars and get you the answers that you're looking for. So with that said, put your questions in there and we'll look at them towards the end here. In closing, I want to ask each of the panelists, what can you say to incoming international students and their parents about the continued value of studying in the United States in general and studying on your campuses in particular? And let me start, Abby, with you, since you're at the top of the screen.
Okay, thanks. I would say that despite the supposed climate and culture in the United States, the universities in the US are known for being resilient in the face of political and social changes. And so it's a very, actually exciting time for an international student to come to the US and be kind of a pioneer of progress. And I'd just like to say one more remark about my university. The average student can come in paying close to what a student paying in the United States would pay. And so we have made it more accessible, and we do hope to attract some new students from Latin America.
Very good. And Kendra, how about at St. Thomas? The value of a St. Thomas education.
Yeah, so we're seeing, new programs pop up more and more and more. So our faculty, we're bringing in amazing faculty that, want to bring all their skills and their expertise with them. We're actually kicking off a new marine biology program for fall 2026. So that's something we're really excited about and we're putting out there. And we've had, new programs popping up in terms of health sciences and fashion and all sorts of really cool things that students get excited about. And, we're just responding to what people are asking for. So we have done some really cool things. And also on the athletic side, I know we have a lot of students out there who may not play sports, but are interested in sports. We have our global football management program that just started this year. So we've seen a lot of interest in that from Latin Americans as well. So, you're not just coming for the cultural, but you're coming for the academics as well. And we're really experiencing some great new programs and great opportunities for our students, especially in Miami.
And Nate, the value of an education at Colorado State. Well, you also have some athletics. I understand you have the second best football program in the state of Colorado.
We'll take that conversation offline. I'm I'll put on my USA hat first because I really do believe in this. I know in times like these the country kind of takes a reputational hit, but I think across the board, I mean the US just from the sheer amount of institutions and the diversity of those institutions. This panel is a great example. You got small private in Florida, you got 8,000 students in Michigan, you got 30,000 in Colorado, right? And take that across the entire country. The innovation coming out of our institution, the research coming out of our institutions, and it's not lost on me. I'm not saying other countries don't do this well because they do, but I just think the sheer breadth of options coming out of the USA isn't going anywhere. And our continued desire to welcome international students isn't going anywhere. So that's my USA prompt right there. So now I'll put on my Colorado State hat. Just really quickly, we could all talk about our institutions forever, right? And we do have redeeming qualities that I think would match the needs of a lot of students. So Colorado State, one thing I'll point out is we are a tier one, R1, research one, however you want to call it, institution, meaning the quality of our research facilities, the amount of research dollars that we bring in on an annual basis is quite high. There are only around 150 R1 universities in the United States. So if you have students out there that are, hey, research is their thing, that's what they want to do. Not that they can't go to non-R1 institutions, they certainly can, but just the level of funding and the quality of the facilities at R1 universities across the US is pretty high. So that'll be my quick plug for Colorado State before I hand it back to Greg.
Okay, great answers all across the board. I'm gonna put a sharper focus on it just for the very end here, right? In the last 12 months, as the value of the education that you deliver and the value of having a degree from Colorado, St. Thomas, or Saginaw Valley, has the value of that degree been diminished at all?
Nope.
No.
Not at all.
Same as it was, right? Same
Same as it
programs,
was.
same values, same employers looking for the same students, the same big head start going forward. I know in our Latin American market, the level of English proficiency in many of our Latin American countries, going home with a U.S. degree and perfect English is a ticket to a life of prosperity and success. That hasn't changed. I want to thank Nate Duggins from Colorado State, Kendra Zacharel from St. Thomas, Abby Swanson from St. Vrain. St. Vrain's the school district where my kids went. Saginaw, you know what? I've been trying not to say that all day, and it finally came out. Saginaw Valley State University for participating in this panel. And on very short notice, we put this together sort of in the middle of last week. Thank you. Thank you also to all of the agents that took some time out of your busy day to hear what we've got to say. I'm going to close this way. The press wants to create a lot of negativity around this story and pretty much any story they put out there. We could interpret the pause at the federal government in a very negative way to intend to mean that we don't value students and we don't have an interest in having those students come. I think you've heard today that across the board at all three of these campuses, those students are valued. In the communities where these campuses are physically located, these students are valued. Among ordinary Americans, these students are valued. We want them here. We like to have them here. I can speak from personal experience since I also live in Colorado. I know personally people who pick up from down here where I live a little bit closer to Denver and move to Fort Collins because it's a beautiful town with great restaurants and a big university and lecture series and international students and diversity. And there's just something about being up there that feels good, right? People pick up their lives and move into Fort Collins to take advantage of that. And it's because it's such a vibrant place for a lot of reasons, but including because it's international. So the very last thing I'll say is this: look, we all have governments. Our governments sometimes act in ways we like. They sometimes act in ways we don't like, but the people never change, right? And so ask yourself, when you go to the corner coffee shop, to the corner bar, to the restaurant where you sit and meet your friends, and your government's acting in a way that you either like or don't like, Does it change how you treat your friends? Does it change the way you interact with the people who you walk by on the street? Does it change your personality or your beliefs about humanity and the world and people? And I would submit to you that it doesn't. And that's also true in the United States. So American people and the American citizens and the average American in this country wants these students, values these students, understands the value that they have in our university system and beyond. And so that's our message to you is, while this unfortunate pause is happening at a very bad time, you are valued, your students are valued, and we can't wait to see them here. And we will be standing ready all along the way to do everything we can to make sure that they get here whenever they get here in the very best position they can be to succeed when they're done. So thank you all once again for either participating as panelists or for listening to us. And thank you for also universities and agents for your partnership with Wellspring. We very much appreciate it. And have a great afternoon. Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks
everyone.
again.